I want to start with something many people experience, but rarely understand. You wake up, go through your day, talk to people, do what you're supposed to do, and from the outside, everything looks normal. But inside, something feels different. Not sadness, not happiness, not excitement, not even anxiety sometimes. Just nothing. Like your emotions have been turned down. You know you should feel something, but you don't. The things that once excited you feel distant. The things that once upset you barely affect you. And part of you starts wondering, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feel anything? Have I become cold? So the question becomes, why do people sometimes feel emotionally numb? Let's break it down. The first reason is emotional overload. Most people think numbness means feeling too little, but often it starts because you've been feeling too much for too long. Stress, pressure, disappointment, anxiety, emotional responsibility. Eventually, your nervous system reaches a limit, and when emotional intensity stays high for too long, the brain starts protecting itself, not by creating more feelings, but by reducing them, like turning down the volume on a speaker that's been playing too loudly for too long. The second reason is chronic stress, when the nervous system spends weeks, months, or even years in survival mode. It begins prioritizing function over emotion, because from your brain's perspective, survival comes first. Feeling comes second. So instead of fully processing experiences, you focus on getting through them, pay the bills, finish the work, handle the problem, keep moving, and eventually, you become so focused on functioning that you stop noticing what you're feeling underneath. The third reason is emotional exhaustion. Every emotion requires energy, even positive emotions. Joy, excitement, connection, hope. And when emotional energy becomes depleted, your ability to feel intensely can temporarily decrease. Not because the emotions disappeared, but because the system carrying them is tired. The fourth reason is emotional suppression. Many people learn early in life that certain emotions feel unsafe. Anger, fear, sadness, vulnerability. So they push them down. Again, and again, and again. At first, it seems effective, but emotions don't disappear when ignored. The nervous system simply gets better at blocking access to them. And eventually, you stop feeling not only the difficult emotions, but some of the positive ones too, because emotional walls rarely filter selectively. The fifth reason is disappointment. Sometimes numbness appears after repeated emotional pain, failed relationships, broken trust, unmet expectations, loss, not one event, many, because eventually, the brain starts asking, what if feeling less hurts less? And without realizing it, your nervous system slowly creates emotional distance, not because it wants to isolate you, but because it wants to protect you. The sixth reason is mental overload. Your brain processes enormous amounts of information every day. Notifications, work, news, conversations, social media, responsibilities, and constant stimulation leaves very little space for emotional processing, because when your mind is constantly occupied, your emotions often get pushed into the background. The seventh reason is disconnection from yourself. Sometimes numbness doesn't happen because emotions disappeared. It happens because you've become disconnected from them. Disconnected from your needs, your limits, your feelings, your inner experiences. You become focused on everyone else, everything else. And slowly, you lose contact with yourself. The eighth reason is emotional self-protection. This is something many people never realize. Numbness is often not a malfunction. It's a defense mechanism. Your nervous system isn't trying to hurt you, it's trying to reduce pain. The problem is, it can't always reduce pain without also reducing joy, which means emotional protection sometimes creates emotional distance. Now, here's where it gets important. Feeling emotionally numb doesn't automatically mean you're broken, and it doesn't necessarily mean your emotions are gone. In many cases, they're still there. They're simply harder to access, because your nervous system has been working so hard to protect you that it forgot how to relax. And here's the truth most people never realize. Healing emotional numbness usually doesn't begin by forcing yourself to feel more. It begins by creating enough safety for feelings to return naturally. Safety from constant pressure, safety from emotional overload, safety from survival mode, because emotions often return when the nervous system finally believes it no longer has to protect you every second. And that process takes time. Slowly, you begin noticing small things again. A conversation affects you, a song means something, a memory creates emotion, a moment feels real, not dramatically, gradually, like feeling returning to a limb that had fallen asleep. And maybe that's the real shift, not becoming someone who feels intensely all the time, but becoming someone who no longer needs emotional numbness to survive. Because underneath the numbness, your emotions were never truly gone. Your nervous system was simply trying to keep you safe. And once it learns that safety is finally possible, feeling begins to return. And with it, so does life. And once you begin understanding that, you notice something surprising. Emotional numbness is rarely permanent. It feels permanent when you're inside it. But most of the time, it's a temporary state, a nervous system response, a period of emotional protection. The problem is that many people start fighting the numbness. They panic. They think, why can't I feel anything? What's wrong with me? What if I stay like this forever? And that fear creates even more pressure, because now your nervous system isn't only carrying exhaustion, it's carrying fear about the exhaustion too. But healing usually starts when you stop treating numbness like an enemy and start seeing it as information, a signal, a message. Your body saying, I've been carrying too much. I've been stressed for too long. I need recovery, not punishment, recovery. And once you begin listening to that message, something slowly changes. You become more aware of what drains you, the people, the environments, the habits, the constant pressure you've normalized, and you begin making space for something your nervous system desperately needs: stillness, not distraction, not constant stimulation, not endless productivity, stillness, because emotions often return in quiet moments, not when you're forcing them, but when you're finally safe enough to experience them. And maybe that's why so many people feel uncomfortable being alone with themselves, because when the noise disappears, the emotions waiting underneath finally have room to surface. And at first, that can feel overwhelming, but it's also a sign that feeling is returning, a sign that your nervous system no longer needs to stay completely shut down. And maybe that's the most important thing to remember. Feeling emotionally numb doesn't mean you've lost yourself. It doesn't mean you're broken. And it doesn't mean you'll stay this way forever. Sometimes it simply means you've been surviving for so long that your nervous system forgot what safety feels like. But once safety slowly returns, your emotions usually do too. Not all at once, but little by little, until one day you notice yourself laughing without forcing it, caring without trying, feeling without fear, and realizing that underneath the numbness the whole time, you were still there.